Okay, well, as you can see here, and I'm going to slowly pan across my desk here, uh, my desk is a mess. In fact, I hope, as I'm panning across here, that your desk is a lot neater than mine is. And the reason I wanted to show you that is I wanted to talk a little bit about the requirements for the paper this week. But in order to talk to you about them, I wanted to show you a little bit of what I've been working on all week, in addition to posting these updates and getting the quiz ready and responding to your emails. I've also been working on a writing project that I started really last summer, and really got into the drafting of this essay in June and July. And so let me just give you a little bit of background. And the reason I'm going to tell you this story is I do this every year. And the reason I tell these kinds of stories is I don't want you to feel that somehow I'm just forcing you to do all this writing and that I'm not doing it myself, because that would seem kind of hypocritical, right? So I wanted to kind of show you what I've been kind of working on. I don't want to say struggling with, although that's been happening a little bit here and there over the past few days. But I'm working on an essay of my own on this fairly well-known person. Any of you baseball fans in the class are no doubt aware of Roy Campanella. He's a really legendary member of the Brooklyn Dodgers in the late 40s and early 1950s. He was a celebrated catcher, probably one of the best catchers that ever played Major League Baseball in the 20th century. And as you can see, I'm writing about a comic book that was based on his life and his family and his adventures as a ball player in the late 40s and early 50s. It was published in 1950, so his career went on after that. In fact, as I've been writing, I even have this Roy Campanella action figure just to sort of keep me in line and to make sure that I'm doing things correctly. But I'm showing you this because I'm doing an article for a friend of mine, my friend Kiana Whitted, and she'd published this book last year on EC Comics, which some of you might be familiar with. They were 1950s horror and science fiction comics. In fact, Kiana, who's a professor at the University of South Carolina, got an award this year, the Will Eisner Award for this book, because it's such an excellent analysis of issues of race and class in these comics in the 1950s. So she's putting together a new book, which means that I had a set of directions that I had to follow. And if you saw on my computer just now, there were the directions for your paper that you're working on, or hopefully we'll start working on soon. And I have a set of directions from her. Now, she's the editor of this book. It's going to be called Desegregating Comics, and it's all about these early comic books from, the early part of the 20th century that focused on African American characters or were drawn by African American artists. And so last year I said, I'd like to be a part of that. How about if I write about Roy Campanella, because it's a great comic and he's a really interesting figure. And so after I agreed to be part of it, there's another 15 writers who are part of the project, so this book will come out in a couple of years. She sent me a set of directions. And I want you to see this because I want to talk about the directions for your first paper today. And I've been doing this since I was probably your age, which is a long time ago, in my first year of college. I maybe did it in high school. That's so far back, I don't quite remember. But anytime I get a set of directions, particularly for a writing assignment like this one that I'm working on, I always make sure that I highlight all of the major ideas and all of the major things that are required. And so that's basically what you're seeing on this email that I received from Kiana a couple of months ago, saying how long our essay has to be, how many references we need to have in it, how many images we can include in it if we want to. And so as I'm working and as I'm revising this essay to submit a draft to her next week, I'm looking carefully at the directions. And that's, if you remember nothing else from this class, I hope that you take with you the idea that a lot of things in life will be a lot easier for you if you read the directions and try to read them carefully. Highlight the major ideas. That helps keep me on track. And I mention that because for this first paper that you're doing, I've talked a little bit about the structure. I put the structure up online a few days ago. I gave you a suggested outline that I hope will help. Some of you have started sending me drafts and I've been sending feedback. I'm happy to do that, so please send me more drafts. as you get a chance and as you get some time to work on it. But I want to talk about the directions for your paper, okay? And again, I was thinking about this morning as I was editing this essay for my friend, because the directions that are on Blackboard are going to do a number of things for you. So I just want to briefly walk through them. I've actually got them here on my computer. So let me pull it over here and read off some of the major ideas for you and some of the formatting elements. Now, this paper is going to be 3 pages long. Now, that means that you want to try to get down to the end of the 3rd page. So the paper shouldn't be 1 page, another page, and then 2 lines at the top of the 3rd page. We've all written papers like that, but don't do it. You got to try to get to the bottom of the 3rd page. You'll also notice on the directions that the guidelines are pretty simple and pretty straightforward. It's got to be double spaced, right? It should be in Times New Roman 12-point font with 1-inch margins. All of that's standard. Those are standard manuscript guidelines. The essay that I've been working on this week, same format, Times New Roman font, double spaced, 1-inch margins, right? Now, in the case of this essay, the other thing you want to keep in mind is, maybe unlike some of your previous English classes, all I need at the top of the 1st page of your paper is your name. And then if you want to give the essay a title, you can also include a title. I don't require one for this 1st paper, but you're welcome to include one. And you can also include the class number, whatever section number of my class that you're in. I do have 4 sections of English 101, but if you look in Blackboard, you'll see which one of those sections you're in. And that's not a big deal, because when these papers come in, I immediately mark them off in my gradebook anyway, so that I know you sent it in. It goes into a folder on my desktop of my Mac, and then I start looking at them and grading them. But that's usually an easy way to kind of keep things organized. You know, your name of the class, and then the title. That's all you need. I don't need your social security number. I don't need your address. I don't need your email address on the paper. I don't need your mom or your dad's name. I don't need the name of your pet. You'll be surprised at how many details some people will put at the top of a paper in order to extend the length a little bit. Just don't do that, especially you're in college now, so avoid that kind of thing. When I get papers in person in class, what often happens is people try to change the fonts. At this point, that's not going to work either, because I'm getting these electronically. So if it is too big of a font, I'm just going to put it back into 12-point anyway. And I want you to learn these skills, these formatting elements, because you will have classes, and you may have already had them, maybe back in high school, where you'll have professors that are real sticklers about this sort of thing. Now, I do ask you to do it. I'm not going to fail you for a paper if you put it in the wrong font size, but trust me, I know people, and I've had professors in my lifetime where if you do one wrong thing like that, one font that's not correct or the margins are off, they won't even read the paper. I'm not that bad, but I do feel it is my job to just remind you to follow those formatting directions. If there's any that aren't clear to you on the directions that are on Blackboard, then please make sure you email me, because that kind of formatting is important. It shows that you're professional, it shows that you're a mature writer, and that you've actually read over all the things that were required of you. Okay, so that's one thing you definitely want to do. Even before you start writing the paper, read through not only my updates and look at these videos that I put up, but also just read those directions, because like I said, they not only will tell you everything you need to know about how to format the final draft of the paper, but they'll also give you some other ideas for the paper itself. In the middle of all my directions, if you recall, there's a big prompt in the middle, and that sort of maps out a lot of the ideas I mentioned in the outline for the other day. So again, that's a little friendly piece of advice. Make sure you read over the directions, go through Blackboard. That's one of the reasons that I put that last question on the quiz that you're all working on for this week, was to make sure that you're diving back into the directions and taking a look at them. Now, I started off this video by showing you the mess that is my desk right now with all this research stuff. So the other thing I want you to take in mind, or keep in mind, is to take your time. Now, again, you're doing a 3-page paper. This essay that I've been working on is 20 pages. It's 8,000 words long. So it's a longer piece of work, but as I mentioned in other videos, I work slowly. So I had to start this essay, as I said, last summer. The due date is coming up on October 1st. And so I've got a complete final draft now that I can edit, and then I can take a look at over the next week or so. And my goal is to turn it in early, because that way, if my friend Kiana has any edits that she wants me to do right away, or any suggestions that she might have, she can tell me now, and I'll have more time to work on it. Again, For someone like me that doesn't write very quickly at all, and as I've told you before, I don't read very quickly either, it's important for me to try to start early. Now, we can't all do that. We all have different jobs, we have different responsibilities, family responsibilities, so we don't always have that kind of luxury to start things really early. But to the best of your ability for this first paper, at least try to start it 3-4 days early. When I was an undergraduate, I always had to start papers as soon as they were assigned. So typically, kind of the way I do it, it's about 2 weeks in advance of the due date. And I'd have to start right away. Otherwise, I would not be able to complete the assignment well. So I got into the habit in my first year writing class, like the one you're taking now with me, to start the papers early. So that way, when I had questions, I could go to the professor. If I wanted to take my draft and show it to a writing center tutor, which we do have our tutors available, they're available online. If you look at the end of my syllabus on Blackboard, you'll see the link to that to make appointments. And it's always good to get that kind of feedback. And as I keep saying, I'm also happy to read any material that you want me to check over for your essay. So always feel free to send it to me. But I make this video to try to do two things: to encourage you to try to get started early, and also to express to you that I'm in it with you. As I said, I'm here working with my my golf shirt on right now, since it's really hard to be playing at this particular moment because a lot of the courses here are closed. In case you're wondering why there's this giant a rake on my shirt, but I'm also in this with you. Like I said, I'm writing, I'm editing. I spent a lot of this morning editing this article down so that I feel it'll be ready to be turned in, as I said, next week. So I'm happy to always talk about the writing process. It's not easy for anyone, even if you've been doing it for years and years, but it's rewarding. You learn a lot of cool stuff. I don't know anything about baseball in the 1940s and 50s. And so for me in the last year, it's been a lot of fun to learn about someone like Roy Campanella. So I'm hoping that as you're working on this first paper, or on any of the papers for this class, that you also learn something new and that you feel encouraged to express yourself in these papers based on what you've learned from these readings. I'm excited to read them. I'm looking forward to giving you feedback. I've already sent feedback to some of you that have started drafts. For those of you that haven't had time yet to get started, there's still plenty of time left to finish these papers and to think about them. As I said, read through the directions, send emails to me with any questions. And in the next video, what I'm going to do is talk a little bit about some common challenges that come up with these first papers of the semester. And that'll be things like grammar and structure. So that'll be the next video that I do. But for now, I just wanted to put up this other, I hope, encouraging video as you start thinking more fully about these essays. Okay, so in the next video, as I said, we'll talk a little bit more about grammar and structure again as you start drafting these pieces. Okay, I'll talk to you then.